Alright team, this isn't my typical kind of video, but recently I've been playing a lot more Dawn of War. The original Dawn of War, not to be confused with Dawn of War 3, that game is just some kind of stupid. So when I first jumped into Eternal Crusade, it didn't help that my knowledge of this game is completely outdated, and I still thought it would shape up to be some sort of PlanetSide 2 with a Warhammer 40k reskin and a lot more blood. But alas, things seem to have changed a lot since I last heard about this game, and what it has boiled down to now is a typical lobby match shooter. It's the madhouse, na 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 na. Okay, I'm down. Yeah, we're losing B. We're gonna 100% lose B on that.
Well, can we move out?
I think we have to start like way back at our spawn point.
I'm moving out.
What does this do?
How do you jump? Can you jump in this game?
I don't think you can. I think you can only like Gears of War style it. So like just lunge forward. What the fuck? Are you mad? Are you kidding me right now?
Bro, I'm not kidding you. I'm going A.
Man, that's so unrelated to what just happened. I cannot tell you how unrelated that is. And just so you guys know, I grew up on the 40k universe and spent almost a decade playing the miniature game. Don't believe me? Take a look.
Get your motherfucking bitch ass to the front line! I don't want to! Do it right now! Yes.
So at first glance, it's obvious the developers didn't complete the game they set out to make. And you can jump to the conclusion that the poor Steam reviews are a perfect summation of Eternal Crusade. It's pretty shit. But I wanted to give it a fair shake, and I hope this video will really help you guys decide if it's worth your time. Let's jump right in. As usual, I'm gonna start with the pros, because I like to show games love before I shit on them, and I'll finish the video with some neutral points. Now, I want to stress I've only played Eternal Crusade for about 8.5 hours, so if you're a veteran and notice I'm off about something, please say so in the comments. Much appreciated. Pro number 1. So I think the first thing any Warhammer enthusiast would wonder about a 40k game is, does it deliver on the atmosphere, the general vibe, and so on? In part, it does, and what it does really well is the fights where you feel like you're just in a mosh pit of chaos and gore. Capturing objectives in this game is just insanity at the best of times, and getting in the face of any of these races, except Orc, I haven't fought against Orc, especially when a melee class comes at you with a fat sword, can be nerve-wracking and you feel like you're in a battle against hardened and hateful warriors, whether it be from their war chants praising the Emperor or their gods, or the gnarly close quarters finishers. You can tell the developers tried to breathe that gritty combat into Eternal Crusade's gameplay, and while in some ways it falls short, I'll cover that in the cons, it largely feels like these races are there because they hate each other, and the conflict itself is going to be as brutal as Warhammer players would hope. And that brings about the next pro, which is the gameplay, and it can be very exciting. A lot of the players that have remained seem to be pretty experienced in the game, so there's a core audience there that can accommodate your thirst for competitive gameplay. And a lot of these guys are relaying commands in the voice comms. When you and your teammates follow orders and attack points together, it really feels like you're this elite marine army charging into battle. And I think one of the biggest attractions to the 40k universe is how badass all of their characters look, so when they look really badass by nature, it's that much cooler when there's a group of you guys rolling up to combat together. The highlight gunfights are always when teams are fighting over control of a point, and this happens very regularly. And the pace of the game, aside from a couple of large maps that were clearly made for a full lobby of players, is always fast-paced and frantic. Time to kill is pretty fast if you're good with your aim, so it's best to stick with teammates and rely on them just as they do you. There are medic or sorcerer classes that can keep you in the action by healing you, much like a doctor from Team Fortress 2, and there are classes that keep your ammo up, or melee classes so they can rush to the front line in defense if you get caught in close quarters. A lot of the rooms in this game that require capture have an upper floor and a bottom floor, so it's really awesome when there's this heavy fighting going on both floors and your team pulls through and claims like the balcony, for instance, surrounding the control room, and this battle turns into this rotation around the upper level to outsmart the enemy. If you are listening to this and thinking, I've never had a moment like that, what the f? But I trust you, Goose, you're a good guy. I'd be surprised and tell you try rolling with your squad to objectives, because I am consistently getting into fights that are engaging. And if you are a player that likes to lone wolf, it'll be much harder for you, but this game is great even in a 1v1 battle. They can be really intense, which is credited to the nice blend of melee and gunplay. Speaking of melee combat, let's jump into our next pro, which is Eternal Crusade has done something really cool with the melee combat. There's several different types of melee attacks you can try, like a fast attack or a defensive bash, and there are times you engage with a player and it literally feels like you're having the bloodiest, angriest chess match ever. And all of these attacks you use play off of each other, so if you defensive bash, for instance, it will destroy the opponent's fast attack if they try to fast attack you. But a strong attack will slap the shit out of a defensive bash, and so on. So there can be like 50 dudes fighting all around you and you're just in the corner having a 1v1 melee fight with a guy for like a minute straight. It's some pulse-pounding, sweaty action that doesn't agree with the leather on my gaming chair. It's kind of like a diaper taint of sweat. There's even more to the melee than this. Like, I think if you're sprinting and then fast attack, it can become a stronger fast attack. There's a lot to it, and meleeing is a big part of this game, so it's pretty great that it doesn't just boil down to a typical press button and get the same old generic attack that'll land. I don't know why I'm doing an accent. And meleeing can lead to executions, which is a freaking gritty feature and I love it. It's a nice touch, especially after a 1v1 goes your way and you've downed the guy and are about to sink your chainsaw into his face. Well, at least I imagine it would feel good since I was always on the receiving end. There's some unique and exciting executions per race, which are the real-life equivalent of a wedgie. There's not a more humiliating way to go out. The emotional and physical scars last a lifetime. My girlfriend thought I branded my ass. Moving right along to the next pro, the animations are really nice. I like the look of the movement and the feedback from the character. It's fast and responsive. You can definitely tell Eternal Crusade has that Gears of War influence to both its movement and animations, and it works pretty well in this game. Both the animations and movement match the quick flow of the combat pretty nicely. But on the flip side, these guys don't come across as these lumbering war machines that you'd kind of expect, and I'll address this later in the video, but in general, all the animations are sleek and don't look awkward, and the flow of combat is definitely there, and that's due in large part to clean and visually appealing animation work. And the last pro, before we get our boots muddy, the Hold the Line game type is one of the most exciting features Eternal Crusade offers. It's a lot like Rush from the Battlefield games, but for some reason it just feels better and more suited for Eternal Crusade than Battlefield. There's a large emphasis on close quarters combat in Eternal Crusade, and I think that's part of the biggest reason why it feels better here. And because of the complexity I mentioned earlier, the Hold the Line game mode constantly has you figuring out if you should charge in on players, whether you're defending or attacking, or if you should try and keep the fight to mid-range. Capturing points gets really hectic, but it never feels overwhelming to the point of frustration. Sieging a tower that has fortifications after you finally pushed off the players defending it is so satisfying, and you feel more comfortable and confident charging in with your whole team because you know a fair bit of them may be melee focus classes, and if the enemy jumps you in the next room, they can go in first and just like clusterfuck the opponent. Excuse my French, I get excited about the Hold the Line game type, it's so damn good. I'm gonna run a fast clip for you guys. It's footage of me playing Hold the Line, and it felt like D-Day. It was so intense, and this map just felt so well suited for this.
One man to waste ammo. Grenade your weapon. Keep those exits clear. I'll see you on the beach.
Was it dope or was it dumb? It was pretty dope. I laughed, I had fun. Okay, so now we're gonna jump into the no laughs, the no fun, the cons. Now disclaimer, it's gonna sound like there's more cons than pros, okay? But I need you guys to just stick with me till the end. Cons, so many cons, cons everywhere, cons, cons, cons. Seriously though, that's what the next like 10 minutes will be like. We'll start with what you can see, which are the graphics. The graphics are a little meh, as you guys can probably tell. The visuals are by no means bad, but don't forget this is a game that cost 50 bucks when it first released. $50 games generally look quite a bit better than this. Hell, even $20 games do nowadays. The game released in 2016, but still, not the best graphically even for that time. That being said, it's definitely not an ugly game by my standards, and some of the details on the characters themselves really add to the experience. For instance, all the playable classes, which I've seen, look great and closely reflect the actual classes in the miniature game, which is what started the 40k universe. The buildings all look dreary and depressing, and while these environments definitely lack the detail for you to feel really immersed in this grim futuristic setting, they still provide a solid backdrop to feed the idea of, hey, you're in a Warhammer 40k game and you're never safe from hearing the inevitable wag of a brain-dead orc. Okay, orcs are actually like the stupidest creatures ever. They're shouting all the damn time, and that's still not enough. They gotta write it all over their freaking structures. Dumb. They're just dumb. Con number 2. For some reason, the shadows look really weak in this game. I checked the settings several times, tried resetting them, and so on, and I even checked other videos to see if this was a visual glitch. So the lack of powerful shadows completely removed that looming, foreboding presence that makes the Warhammer 40k universe so dark, eerie, and visually attractive. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Possibly the most famous quote of the 40k universe, and I just feel like Eternal Crusade has missed the mark a bit on delivering the visceral aspect of the atmosphere from the source content. I feel like a big part of that can be fixed by just adding stronger shadowing. I mean, you look at Dawn of War and Deathwing, and from a visual standpoint, you can just look at these games and be like, these captured the essence of the 40k universe through their representations of these bleak environments. You look at these screenshots and think, shit, if this is the future, I'm not having kids, no way. And then you look at Eternal Crusade, and sometimes it's hard to remember this isn't just another free-to-play lobby shooter. There's just a lack of volumetrics, like fog or light streams through the dark clouds, and smoke, anything. All of these would help kind of develop the soul of the 40k world. The lack of volumetrics, such as smoke from rubble, and the frequency of barren fields with not enough detail and void of debris to make them interesting, really affect the game's ability to mirror the savage source content from which it is derived. For the sake of traversing this terrain in a vehicle, I understand why the land around the buildings is relatively scarce, but what I am referring to is this is a bleak-ass world. Throw some bodies on the ground, throw some chunks of metal from a land speeder around, maybe a bunch of puddles with blood and dirty water mixed in. Show us that brutal side of the 40k universe instead of just having a lot of barren land for the tanks to navigate through without visual appeal. From an aesthetic point of view, the maps feel too simple and untouched, with the only attractive parts being the buildings all over the map, which, while pretty nice looking on the outside, also look pretty unscathed and unlived in on the inside. And moving on to the next. Considering how armor-clad these guys are, and how huge their armor is, the combat and movement doesn't feel as impactful as you'd hope. I wouldn't say they're floaty or anything, but when you're sprinting like you're about to fuck Usain Bolt's record up and you weigh like 1,000 kilograms, something might feel a bit off. This specific issue relates to Space Marines and Chaos, because I haven't played the other two races. In general, the movement doesn't feel bad. It's a lot like Gears of War, as I mentioned. It just doesn't seem to match up with how you'd expect a Space Marine to move, speed-wise. The guns and the melee combat feel like they lack impact a bit, as firing your gun doesn't feel incredibly powerful. The 40k world is all about these insane races brutalizing each other with these menacing, massive arsenal of weapons, and in general, they just kind of feel and sound a bit lackluster in Eternal Crusade, when both firing or meleeing and landing hits. There isn't that heavy, nasty, and satisfying impact. Like, you play Gears of War, and the movement has so much weight in that game, and it feels really good. And the guns have that oomph factor. This game, which practically has the exact same movement, does not have that feeling of weight, which is unfortunate. This next point I'm gonna make might vary a lot between each person, but this is in regard to how I feel about the action in the game. It can feel really fun and intense at times, but it's missing that epic feel a lot of the best shooters capture. I'm not necessarily talking epic like Battlefield's exploding buildings and crazy environment reactions, I'm just talking about the feel of those full-on gunfight moments. It's hard to explain, but they just feel a bit lacking. They're fun when you're a part of them, but when I die during these intense moments, I was never like, shit, I went down, I'm so frustrated, I wanted to stay in there, get me back in there. My reaction was more along the lines of, oh, that was cool. Alright, let's respond. There's a difference between fun and epic, and the game has consistently been fun to me, but I would say even in my most intense or clutch gunfights, I never really had an, oh damn, that shit is crazy kind of moment. This is to each their own though, it's just something I've kind of noticed that I've experienced with a lot of really amazing shooters, and I haven't really had with this one yet, and I actually happen to think this is a pretty awesome shooter. And I think this might happen over time once I get kind of more committed into the competitive side of this game, because right now I'm a bit more of a casual, and you know, with intense strategy comes some even more intense moments, so it might happen. Con number something, I don't know. Lacking character types from each race, big con. There's just not much variety here considering how vast and expansive each race is in the 40k universe. Unit types feel like they're at a minimum. It would have been sick to have something like Dreadnoughts, Chaos Spawn, Scouts, and I mean, when I found out I couldn't play a Servitor...
Initializing build protocol. I will do as you ask. Yes, Lord. I shall obey. I exist to serve.
I was devastated. I'm just like running around trying to repair the walls on these already indestructible buildings. Anyways, it's unfortunate that the Eldar and Orcs aren't really played by anybody or balanced, because Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines are already quite similar, so playing one or the other doesn't really feel different. I hope they are working on adding more playable unit types to this game, because that would be tremendous fun. But I somehow doubt it. If I'm wrong on this, please call me on it. I mean, the most recent campaign they launched, which seems like a fancy way of saying, come back to our game, we let out some small incentive like in-game cosmetic points. The most recent one just had some new Space Marine skins from the look of things. Speaking of cosmetic points, let's talk about another negative, which I suppose isn't so much a negative, but it is something to be aware of. There are some sizable limitations on free players. You're barred from certain cool parts of the game, and this Steam post sums it up pretty well. So it's something to be mindful of that if you enjoy the game a lot and are getting committed, you'll likely have to pay to really enjoy ranking up, getting unique gear and unlocking more on the skill tree. You can still absolutely be competent as a free player, so it's nothing to blame your bad kill-death ratio on. That might just be that you suck, which is the case for me. So, the one area where being a free player becomes a huge pain in the ass is we can't utilize the world map to join games. So premium players can open up the map, find a fight, and jump right in. The problem with this is there's no freaking games except for one at most times of the day, so you're barring free players from joining a game that still has a lot of available spots, forcing them to sit in a long-ass queue and hope they get into the next one or pay for premium. This is ridiculous. Your game is already struggling horribly with population, so let free players have access to games in progress or any games on the map, because this is a huge turnoff to us when we see that there's barely any games we can get into, and we have to wait just to try your game, without wasting hours waiting. Because guess what? We can turn into paying customers if we are able to try your game, get into enough matches, and realize we enjoy it. I just feel like Eternal Crusade loses more customers and money this way instead of making any. And the final point, probably the worst of it all, the dead population. This is by far the biggest pain in the butt about this game.
So we have to wait?
It would appear that way, yes.
This game was expensive, man. I don't know why.
Yeah, like back in the day, wasn't it like $50 or something?
I put a lot of money into this game.
Oh, you bought it when it was still like... when it wasn't free?
No, I got it for free. I was just trying to talk smack.
Matthew.
Like, you bought this game?
No, Matthew, I didn't buy it. I didn't buy this game. How do you feel about the actual multiplayer, though? Are you enjoying it, or is it kind of like, eh?
It's interesting. It definitely has like a Gears of War feel to it.
Yeah.
So, and I never played Gears of War, so.
So then, how do you know it? How do you know it has a Gears of War feel, Matthew?
Visually, I've seen the gameplay, and it's comparable. Can I say that?
Well, you already did, so... Holy shit, we're not gonna get another game. We're gonna have to wait until the next group of 20 people that made it in are done.
Alright, I'm gonna use the restroom.
You can take 8 shits, and by the time you get back, we still won't be in game, which is the lack of actually being able to play it. I've noticed this issue way more when trying to play Eternal Crusade with friends, and I shit you not, we've had 24-minute waiting queues. On a Saturday night. I don't know about y'all, but I've got a lot of Gilmore Girls catching up to do, so my free time is precious. And it was horrible because, well, I mean, you're in a call with someone for 24 minutes doing nothing, so you gotta talk to the person, and it starts with, so what's new, and leads into how's the love life, and next thing you know, you're crying in a call with your bro, who thought this session would just be about gaming, but no, Eternal Crusade made us wait 24 minutes, and now he knows all my baggage and never wants to talk to me again. I mean, just last night I hopped on around 11:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, left the queue running as I worked on this video for 40 minutes, forgot the game was running, tabbed back in, lo and behold, 40 minutes later I was still in the queue. I mean, come on now. Upon investigation into the horrible wait queues, apparently most players remaining are from the EU, so for us Canadian and US players, the ping might be kind of gnarly, but it definitely hasn't like shattered my experience at all in any of the games. And that also means we're gonna be logging on at weird times if we want to get like a good showing of players. And finally, I'm sorry this video ended up going a lot longer than I expected. I just wanted to finish with some neutrals. I wanted to mention this point since I'm a free player and the biggest concern in freemium games is pay to win or lack of balancing. And I'm not the best person to comment on this because I've only played for about 8 hours and I'm fairly new, but I never felt like I was getting stomped by any specific class or gun. I was getting stomped pretty equally by everyone. I'm just kidding, I'm alright. Like, I never thought, ah shit, not gonna attempt this attack because this guy will just be too OP against me. So in terms of pay to win or balancing issues, keep in mind I only played against either Chaos Space Marines or Space Marines, but I didn't ever feel cheated or less capable than other players. I played against the Eldar once, but yeah, I did get stomped by them, but I think that's just because they were like a completely new race to me and I had never played against them before. The PvE mode, I can't say much about it aside from the fact that I was getting stomped the whole time I did it. It doesn't seem to scale to the amount of players in the party, so I was getting wrecked in seconds because these hordes of Tyranids pretty much descended upon me like I was the newest iPhone release. It was nuts! I just wasn't getting matched with a party after a long time of waiting and just tried rolling solo. Do not recommend that. When I finally got into a game with someone, this happened. So yeah, PvE, get some friends together before you do it, otherwise you're just wasting your time. The best way I can summarize my experience with Eternal Crusade is, when you first hear a song and you're like, it's decent, I'll add it to my playlist because I really need new music. And then by the third time you hear it, you're headbanging and getting whiplash and you never felt so alive. That's Eternal Crusade. And this analogy really applies to me because when I first played Eternal Crusade, I wasn't wowed at all. I was like, this should be alright, for a few games maybe until Atlas comes out. But as I kept playing, I got into crazier matches, way better game types than the typical Supremacy Conquest kind of game, and I really ended up enjoying this game. The thing is, I'm a free player, I haven't paid $1 on this game yet, and I really don't think you'll need to get dozens of hours of fun out of Eternal Crusade. I believe in spending money on a free-to-play game if I get enough fun out of it and it's deserving of the money, so I wouldn't even be opposed to dropping some money on this game. But the biggest worry is the longevity of Eternal Crusade's population. It is really low way too frequently, and that is the most standout issue to me right now. I may buy it and then have no games to get into at any given point. But it is free to play, so why not try it? It actually took me several days longer than expected just to make this video because I'd watched the footage as I was editing it and it just made me want to play the game. And so I did. Wag!
Yes, get it, bitch, yes.
As far as online Warhammer 40k shooters go, this is a totally competent, I'd even argue good, multiplayer game with fluid and constantly hectic gameplay. This game has gotten wrecked on Steam reviews, and it's important to keep in mind the developers have made some huge missteps with their community along the way, and promises to said community about what would be in the game were never fulfilled. And I feel like that's why this game has not only driven a huge percentage of its loyal players away, but caused the negative cloud around this game to just grow to the point where people won't even give it a shot. Coming in as someone who expected nothing special and just wanted a quick 40k shooter binge, I was pleasantly surprised. Bottom line, it's fun, it's worth a shot, and it won't even hurt your wallet. And I'd love to see some of you guys in-game, maybe playing an orc. They're dumb as fuck, but I feel bad because they get so neglected. And if you spot Hershey's Kiss nipples in-game, it's an easy kill for you. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry this video went on for so long. I really do love the Warhammer 40k universe, and I wanted to dispel some of the negative stigma around this game, because I truly had a blast. Please consider subscribing for more content and leaving me a comment, and if you're an Eternal Crusade veteran, please correct me if I need it, or share some awesome tips for those of us who are getting into the game. And very lastly, Chapter Master Valrak, a YouTube creator who does amazing and helpful Eternal Crusade content. Check him out if you're looking to develop a deeper understanding of the game. His content has helped me a lot. I'll leave his channel link in the description. Alright, take care.